welcome to Project Waimarie, which is a project being undertaken by the Wanganui Riverboat Restoration and Navigation Trust. We're on site here at Motua Gardens, and at the moment we're rebuilding the old wharf that the boat used to run from. The boat was built in London in 1900, came out here and was assembled across the river at what was known as Sedgebrook, the foundry. Came out here as kit sets from London, the riverboats that is, and they were all assembled over there and started work running from here up as far as Tamaranui. The stage we're at the program of the restoration at the moment is stage 1, and that is to reinstate the riverbank by building a wall reaching from PS Calliope 120 metres upriver to just about opposite the Wanganui Computer Centre. And then the next stage is to rebuild the old wharf. Now this wharf was built in the late 1800s and operated with the A Hatrick up until 1903, when the Upriver Settlers Steam Navigation Company, which owned the boat, went broke and were bought out by Mr. Alexander Hatrick. Now his base was just next door at TS Calliope. From there he ended up with the boat and renamed it the Waimarie, which means peace on the river. The two companies had stopped competing against each other and happiness and harmony were installed. So off they went there. The boat traded upriver to as far as Pākaitore. She's a 104-foot long paddle steamer. She's 16 foot wide, and at the present time she's lying just off the front of the wharf you can see here. The Wanganui Community College Conservation Corps, they've taken the rebuilding of this wharf as their project for the year, for this class, and they're about halfway through at the moment. Part of the riverbank you're looking at now is looking back from upriver down to the wharf. Now you can see how the bank is deteriorating, both through wave action and it's just generally been neglected. The string line you can see is where the wall is going to be. So what we'll do is reinstate a nice wall along the riverbank and stop this erosion business. What you're looking at now is the upriver end of where we're going to work to with the wall. Where the concrete wall is up there is going to be the end of our job. We'll reinstate a wall right along. It virtually comes in underneath where the camera is now, back towards the wharf we were looking at previous. The banks will be refilled and the gangways will be reinstated as proper safe structures to walk on. It's just through tidal action that the bank is starting to deteriorate. It's only over the last 3 years that we've lost probably 4 metres of the riverbank, just fallen off and disappeared. And you can see the old rubbish and everything starting to expose itself. That's previous stuff left behind from previous riverboating and wharf construction that used to be here. Well, here we are today on the riverbank, right on Project Waimarie. The two posts you can see, the one nearest to the camera, that is where the stern of the boat is, and the one furthest up is the bow. As I was saying, she's 104 foot long, so in the middle is where her engine room, her boilers are. Well, here we are on the upriver end of the wharf. The men you see working are from number 4 troop, the Queen Alexandra Armoured Squadron. and they are working straight off the bow of where the Waimarie's lying on the water's edge. She's 8 foot wide out from the post, so there's quite a bit of her still in the water, and she's about 12 inches deep under the surface. What the men are doing here now is still trimming up the riverbank so we can build the wall along there. The wharf, as you see it, the only part that'll probably come out from here still to come out is the big mast you see standing up there. We've got a new one to put in its place, so we can have a working derrick working off the wharf onto the boat. Well, what you're looking at here are all the poles that we're going to use for the repiling of the new wall that's going along the riverbank. We're at this stage, the poles have all been cleaned and the machines have been in and sprayed hot tar all over them. They'll be going in where you see the markers corresponding along the riverbank. It's just coming down to low tide, and you see the men down there now, they're digging through the top of the boilers in the middle of the boat.
Blast. You thought the same thing. I don't think that's part of the boat.
Right, what you're looking at here is Dave having a bit of a dig on the forward deck of the Waimarie. And just behind him there is the top of the boilers, the top box it's used to be called. The boat is 8 feet either side of that, as well as 50 feet in both directions up. Here we see Ross digging down onto the deck, the forward deck. She's about 2 foot below the surface there. His shovel's hitting the wooden decks of her at the moment. This gentleman here is, you're seeing standing on the wreck, is Lou O'Connell. He was served part of his apprenticeship time with the Hatricks Company and actually did work on the Waimarie as a young man. He's come back to have a look at his old job. What we're doing here now is driving the piles for the new seawall. This operation will probably take us the best part of the day, and then we build the seawall with big planks behind the poles. Driving a pile down there now. It's about the 5th one for the day. The men in the riverbank, they're digging the little pilot holes to start the poles off. This site here is the oldest recorded site in Wanganui. It actually is where the first settlers landed 150 years ago. The blue building that's just gone from view, that was the old Alexander Hatricks main office building on the wharf. And as we come along, we're now looking straight at the old Upriver Settlers Steam Navigation Company. They were the opposition to Hatrick between 1900 and 1902. The Waimarie is lying right in front of where you can see the new planking showing, and her bow up the upriver end and her stern just out of view at the moment. Well, here we are on site, 1st of March 1991, first day of autumn actually. The men you see digging in front, they're digging the big trench to carry the concrete deadmans, which are going to be the back weights to hold the wall. Steel rods will go through from the concrete deadmans through to the piles holding the wall in place. All be tied back and reburied, and the area will be smoothed out under the wharf, and that'll be the new ground level. Well, the previous scene you were looking at was the workers replacing the forward main beam on the wharf. The previous one was rotted out, so we'll make a new one and fit it in its place. The scaffolding was erected the other day, that's come in real handy. So the wharf program is going along really good. The scene you're looking at now, well, today's Saturday the 23rd of March, and with the low tides we're getting, we're having a lightning dig along the inboard side of the hull of the boat. The men you can see now digging, especially up on the closest to the camera, they're standing on the decks of the Waimarie. And we'll work right along the side as long as we can until the tide comes back in. She looks pretty good. She's all steel and with wooden decks, and they're all quite firm and solid. So we might have found ourselves a lucky salvage.
Big boat.
You can see how long the long line is.
A real spring tide. Tide the wind was blowing easterly. But she's doing good.
Is it a bit, a Panama? It's not a fair lead, it's a bit.
Want you again?
Here we have the port side of the vessel just in front of the engine room, and we can see the paddle shaft, the remains of the paddle shaft sticking out through the hull of the vessel, and on the other side of it there we can see the bearing, and we can also see that the paddle housing that the paddle and housing have been removed from the port side, but there's no damage to the hull.
Okay.
Here we have the combing at the back of the engine room, and the far corner of it marks the end of the engine room. And I don't know whether you'll be able to see it on the film, but there's actually quite a lot of oil coming up out of the vessel itself and floating around in the water. So the Queen Alexandra Squadron are now about to replace the beams that fit on the top of the piles on the front part of the wharf. We took this beam off and we found that it was rotten, so we had to replace the whole beam, and we're about to reinstall it on top of these piles. Here we have Devon and Greg from the Conservation Corps fitting the last few bits and pieces into the upriver end of the wharf. We've got about 2 more beams to go on, and all the joists are on, and we'll be ready to start doing the decking. Here we have the Conservation Corps preparing, measuring and putting in the decking on the old wharf. Chiseling out holes in the decking to fit over the bolts, which are the holding down bolts for the joists underneath the decking. And the boys at the far end there are tarring the joins in the decking where they actually butt up together, so to preserve the ends and stop the rock getting in.
August on the banks of the Wanganui, and you see the volunteer men here putting together the old wharf. Now what we're doing at this moment is putting the decking out. You can see we've had a flood in the last couple of weeks, deposited a bit of new mud under places, but it's all looking nice and tidy and the wharf worked well. The decking is going on at the moment. We've got about another 20 planks to put on and that'll do it. We'll have we can walk out over the river. First time since 1954.
6th of September. That's Friday. We're just about to knock off. We've completed decking the wharf, and we're just putting the kick rail around the outside, and the job will be finished.
Come in a bit closer, please. Right, be able to officiate here, and I see members of the Trust with us this morning. I'll tell you who they are. The Trust Chairman is Mark Campbell. Councillor Beryl Warnock over there is the member of the Trust. Mrs. Jean Warnock, I'm sure you know today. She's here somewhere, over there. Ian McGowan, who a number of you will remember having picnics on that paddle steamer. I certainly do. And the beginning of the involvement of the Whanganui River development around the pioneering history. It's also exciting that we're celebrating the completion of stage 1 of Project Waimarie and the restoration of Hatricks Wharf, which is of a standard which make our forebears thriving business right here on the river. And it's with some pride that I look at you all out here, and all of you have had the vision and the will to restore this part of Wanganui's heritage. And the city and district is very grateful to you all, and I wish to congratulate all those that manually worked so hard, so tirelessly to restore this wharf under the direction of Mark. And with us, 2 members or former members of
Oh, we can say the wharf's finished.